طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Alhamdulillah, last week we completed the chapters of the sin of murder and zina, or adultery and fornication, and then the Imam Ibn Qayim rahimahullah starts the new chapters talking about the gateways to sin. So he said there's four main gateways to sin, and that was the eyesight, the thought, the step, and the action. Or the eyesight, the thought, the speech, and then the step, which is the action. So those are the four main gateways the Imam rahimahullah said leads to sins. So inshallah today we'll cover at least the first two, I hope. And the first one we started with the introduction last week, but I'll review it again, talking about the first madkhal, or the first gateway into sin, which is the glance, or the sight, or the eyes. And I started with talking about some of the miracles of the eye, that the scientists have discovered and have yet to discover more. So he said that the retina contains about 130 million rod-shaped cells, which detect the light intensity, and they transmit the impulses to get the visual and the cortex to the brain. And there's also a million nerve fibers transmitting those signals, right? And they said there's 6 million cone-shaped cells that distinguish the colors in the eye. And with just like a couple of minutes of watching or looking at something, they say there's almost 1 billion or more simultaneous actions that are going on. And the eye, they can handle, like in terms of messages coming in, 500,000 at the same time. So you can imagine how complex the eye is. The miracle of like how the tear ducts inside, they provide just the right amount of lubrication with the exact chemical necessary to clean the eye and protect the eye. If you didn't have that lubrication in the eye, it could dry up and it would become blind, right? Also you have the eyelids and the eyelashes that protects from dirt and bacteria and dust and cleanses the eye, right? And you don't even think about it when you blink. How many times a day do you blink? Imagine if you had to be controlled of blinking, how tiresome that would be. But from the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's let you, made it automatic for you. And it's a protection for your eyes. Charles Darwin, he said, I found an interesting quote that basically challenged his theory of evolution. He said, to suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances, could have been formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. So he's saying that the idea that the eye could have just come about through evolution is it's his own theory. He's saying it's absurd. It's ridiculous, right? That's how perfect the eye is. Even like the scientists saying that he can't find an answer for it because of how, perfect and how much jobs that the eye does. The main point I wanted to remind us is that even though the eye is 1/4,000 of your body weight, right? If you compare your eyesight or your eyeballs to the body weight, it's 1/4,000, right? That's how small in weight it is compared to the rest of the body. But it takes and processes 80% of the information into your mind, right? So the eyesight is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's a very important gateway into the mind and into the heart. So that's why the Imam is saying how to be very careful of what you look at, what you let come in through your eyesight, because that's a gateway. So to protect it. So he says, وَأَكْثَرُ مَا تَدْخُلُ الْمَعَاصِي عَلَى الْعَبْدِ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَبْوَابِ الْأَرْبَعِ فَنَذْكُرُهَا فِي كُلِّ بَابٍ مِنْهَا فَصْلًا يُلِيقُ بِهِ. So these four things the Imam is saying, like we mentioned, the eye, the glance, the thought, the speech, and the step, the action, are the four gateways to sin. Like the sins come through these four gateways, and he said we're going to discuss each one and give it its proper due in each chapter. So the first chapter he starts with is the eyesight, النظرة. فأما اللحظات, like the passing glances, فهي رائد الشهوة ورسولها وحفظها أصل الحفظ الفرج فمن أطلق بصره أورد نفسه موارد المهالك. He's saying that these glances, or the eyesight, is the key and the messenger to the desires. So it can protect you it protects your private parts, or if you let it go free, it can ruin you and destroy you. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تتبع النظرة فإنما لك الأولى وليست لك الأخرى. Don't follow the glance with another glance, for you have the right for the first one, but no right in the second one. So sometimes a person might look at something that's not, befitting to be looking at. He might see it in passing. That first glance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from His mercy, you can't control everything you see, right? So He forgives that. But if you follow the glance with another glance and start looking at it and thinking about it, then that's when you get taken to account for, right? Just like we said with hearing, there's a difference between hearing something and listening to something. So you might be passing through a mall and hearing all types of crazy music, but it's different than you actually have the intention to listen to it, right? And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, النظر سهم مسموم من سهام إبليس فمن غض بصره عن محاسن المرأة أورث الله قلبه حلاوة إلى يوم يلقاه. He's saying that the glance is a arrow from the arrows of Iblis, the shaitan, the devil. And whoever lowers his gaze to the opposite sex, he mentions here the beautiful woman, Allah will put a sweetness into his heart that will last until the day of judgment, when he meets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So to lower your glance, to lower your gaze upon that which haram, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala returns you with halawat al-iman, sweetness of faith. وقال غضوا أبصاركم واحفظوا فروجكم. And he said, lower your gaze and protect your private parts. وقال إياكم والجلوس على الطرقات. قال يا رسول الله مجالس هنا ما لنا بد منها. The Prophet said, be careful with the paths, like the highways or the roads and these paths. Back in the day, they used to sometimes gather there. He said, don't sit there, don't gather there. And then the Sahaba asked him, "Oh Prophet of Allah, what if we have to, sit there or pass by and stay there for a while?" He said, if you do that, فإن كنتم لا بد فاعلين فأعطوا الطريق حقه. If you do that, then give the path its right. قالوا وما حقه. And they said, what is the right of the path? To the Prophet ﷺ, he said, غض البصر وكف الأذى ورد السلام. To lower the gaze and to take away any harm stuff that comes on the path, and to return the salam. So if a person's going to be, outside in a certain path, the right of that path is to keep your gaze lower, not to look upon those things that are forbidden to you, to take away any type of dirt or things that can cause harm that you see in front of you, and to return the salam. If people pass by and give you salam, to return the salam. That's the right of the path. وَالنَّظْرُ أَصْلُ عامة الحوادث التي تصيب الإنسان فالنظر تولد خطرة ثم تولد الخطرة فكرة ثم تولد الفكرة شهوة ثم تولد الشهوة إرادة ثم تقوى فتصير عزيمة جازمة فيقع الفعل ولا بد ولا يمنع منه مانع وفي هذا قيل الصبر على غض البصر أيسر من الصبر على ألم ما بعده. So he says that the glancing is the foundation of all the actions that will come upon a person. So the glancing, the looking, brings about the thought, the fleeting thought, khatra. And that brings about pondering, like thinking about it. And that brings about desire. And then desire brings about like you're trying to go forward and make the action occur. And that, if nothing comes to prevent you from it, it means that you're going to go forward with the evil action. So the Imam says that, or many of the scholars of the past used to say, that the sabr al-ghad al-basar, like the having patience to lower the gaze, is a lot easier than the sabr or the patience that comes for the punishment of not lowering your gaze, right? Because that one glance can lead to so much evil. And in my experience, in my humble experience, I've found that most of the problems that happen between men and women start with the glance, not controlling the glance. And then it's so easy, the shaitan, he's always trying to get us. So he comes like little by little, and then it turns into something way, way out there sometimes for a lot of people. So the Imam is saying to have patience about lowering that glance can save you a lot of trouble in the future, right? A lot of pain. It can save you from falling into a lot of pain and heartache. And he mentions the statement of one of the poets, كل الحوادث مبدأها من النظر ومعظم النار من مستصغر الشرر. That all of the actions come through the glance. It starts with the glance, and most of the hellfire is filled for those people who thought the sins were small. Oh, it's just a small sin, it's not a big deal. So he said most of the hellfire is filled with them. كم نظرة بلغت من قلب صاحبها كمبلغ السهم بين القوس والوتر. How many times did a glance from a person become an arrow like that is freed from the bow? والعبد ما دام ذا طرف يقلبه في عين الغيد موقوف على الخطر يسير مقتله ما ضر مهجته لا مرحبا بسرور عاد بالضرر. So basically, like, the person is trapped with that glance, and it leads to thought, and the thought leads to action, and he's saying, like, no happiness is welcome that's going to bring about destruction or harm. So that little happiness, that little pleasure, that little fun that the person has from the glance and the sins that come from it, he said it's not welcome, because the harm and the hardship and the pain that comes afterwards is a lot more severe. So it's more beautiful in Arabic, obviously, but I tried to do a rough translation. ومن آفات النظر أنه يورث الحسرات وزفرات والحرقات فيرى العبد ما ليس قادر عليه ولا صابر عليه وهذا من أعظم العذاب أن ترى ما لا صبر لك عن بعضه ولا قدرة على بعضه ولا قدرة على بعضه. He's saying that from the evil effects of the glance is that it will bring about like grief and like a burning desire and kind of like a hopelessness, because he said it's not a person cannot be patient when you look upon something that you can't have. It just like increases a person's like basically destituteness. Like he's just hopeless. He's just like, he sees, for example, this beautiful car, and it's so nice, and he keeps looking at it. He's like, but he can't have it. He doesn't have the money to get it. So it fills his heart with like despair, basically. Also for like, he's looking at a beautiful woman, and he can't have her, and his heart gets attached. And they can't get married for some reason, something like that. So he just makes his heart ache, and he has like burning desire that cannot be fulfilled. So he's saying this is from the evil effects of the glance. And then the poem said, وَكُنْتُ مَتَى أَرْسَلْتُ طَرْفَكَ رَائِدًا لِقَلْبِكَ يَوْمًا أتبعتك المناظر رأيت الذي لا كله أنت قادر عليه ولا عن بعضه أنت صابر. So he said basically, like, the glance will be followed by many more glances, and the thing that you see, you can't achieve all of it, and you can't be patient with some of it. So maybe you can get like the glance, which is like a little bit of it, but you're not patient enough. You always want more, and you can't get that more. So it's gonna like hurt your heart, basically, and hurt your mind, because you're desiring something that you can't have. And Imam goes into, says many other points of poetry, but basically says, أن النظر تجرح القلب جرحا فيتبعها جرحا على الجرح ثم لا يمنعه ألم الجراحة من استدعاء تكرارها ولا أيضا في هذا المعنى ما زلت تتبع النظرة في نظرة في إثر كل مليح ومليح وتظن ذلك دواء جرحك وهو في التحقيق تجريح على تجريح. He's saying that basically, like, the glancing, the eyesight, the looking is hurting the heart, right? And it just increases the hurt and the heartache. The more you look, the more your heart yearns that you can't have it, and your more heart aches. And he says in the poem that this glance following a glance is like that the more you look at it, you think you're going to try to get more, but all it is punishment upon punishment. Like you think you can, the person thinks that he can achieve that shahwa, that desire that he wants, that he keeps longing for, but he's not able to do it. So all it does is increase him in pain. So that's the eyesight. Basically, the Imam says, that's one of the greatest pathways to evil, right? The glance. The glance leads to looking, the looking leads to thinking, and then thinking leads to action. So he started with the eyesight, saying to be very careful of not looking upon those things that are not for you to look at, and do not be greedy for those things that you don't possess, because it can lead to heartache. Then he goes to the chapter of thought or thinking. We said after the glance comes the thought, the thinking. That's the other gateway to the haram or to the sins. وأما الخطرات فشأنها أصعب فإنها مبدأ الخير والشر ومنها تتولد الإرادات والهمم والعزائم فمن رأى خطراته ملك زمام نفسه وقهر هواه ومن غلبته خطراته فهو هواه ونفسه له أغلب. So he's saying that the khatarat, the thoughts, are a great affair. From it springs all the good and all the evil. And from it, the thoughts become desires, and the desires become actions. So he's saying that those who can control their thoughts can control their nafs, and they can subdue their nafs, their soul, their lower desires. But those who can't control their thoughts, like their thoughts overtake them, that means that their nafs will overtake that person. So he's saying that what you thinking in your mind is very important, and that's how you can control the nafs. If you let your mind run wildly, run freely, without having control over it, then the nafs overcomes it, and then the desires and the sins follow. And he says, he quotes the ayah, كَسَرَابِ بَقِيعَةٍ يَحْسَبُ الظَّمْآنُ مَاءً حَتَّى إِذَا جَاءَهُ لَمْ يَجِدْهُ شَيْئًا وَجَدَ اللَّهَ عِنْدَهُ فَوَفَّاهُ حِسَابُهُ Wallahu Sari'ul Hisab. That's a mistake here. But basically the ayah about the mirage, the person sees, he's a very thirsty person, and he sees a mirage of water, and he runs to get to that water, and when he gets there, there's nothing there except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving him his recompense, basically. So he's saying these thoughts without proper actions, halal actions, is basically like a mirage. It's illusion. And then it's a destruction once you get there. وخص الناس همة وأوضعهم نفسا من رضي من الحقائق بالأماني الكاذبة واستجلبها لنفسه وتحلى بها وهي لأمر الله رؤوس أموال المفلسين ومتاج البطالين وهي قوة النفس الفارغة التي قد قنعت من وصول بزورود الخيال. So basically, having the improper thoughts, he's saying, is building your hopes and desires upon falsehood, like a bunch of lies. The people that don't have proper thoughts, the thoughts, their nafs is controlling it. They're building it upon false hope, basically. Things that are not going to come true. And this is the key to, he's saying, the poverty. Those people that have the big dreams but no action behind it. And he's saying this is the pathway to destruction, and this is what causes a hopeless self or hopeless nafs. وهي أضر شيء على الإنسان, and this is one of the most destructive things to the person. ويتولد منها العجز والكسل وتولد التفريط والحسرة والندم, and it comes from this. It brings a person laziness and the inability to achieve things, right? And it comes from that also having regret, So the person he's talking about, basically the ones that have these big dreams they're not built upon reality, all these goals. He puts all his hopes and his thoughts in that, and they're not built upon anything, not doing any action for it. So he's saying all these thoughts basically is making him a loser, basically. He's not having any action behind it. In fact, he gets lazy, because the goals are so big and so out of his reach. He just sits down and does do nothing because he's overwhelmed by it, right? And a mu'min, he's not like that. He's pragmatic. We could say we're pragmatic optimists. So we're optimistic. We always hope for the best, but we're pragmatic in the sense that we are realistic in the sense that we make realistic goals, right? So you don't have fake goals and build your whole hopes upon something that's impossible to achieve. وذلك لا يجدى عليه شيء وإنما مثله مثل الجاعل والضمان يسور في وهمه وصورة الطعام والشراب وهو لا يأكل ولا يشرب. Like the person, he's saying, that is starving and thirsty, right? but he's not doing any actions to get food or drink, but he's thinking about these beautiful 7-course meals with beautiful drinks and food, all types of delicious foods and everything like that. But he himself is starving and he's thirsty. He doesn't have nothing with him, right? He's comparing these improper thoughts to this type of situation. You know, the person having all these type of crazy dreams, you know, he's going to have 4 beautiful model wives and the Mercedes and Lamborghini, and he's working in McDonald's, you know, basically, and not praying and not doing anything like he's supposed to be doing. And he thinks that, you know, it's fine to have high hopes, but you should always temper them with reality and take the steps that are needed to achieve those goals, right? So the Imam, he's going to go to now talking about what the proper thoughts are. إنما شرف النفس وذكاؤها وطهارتها وعلوها بأن ينفي عنها كل خطر لا حقيقة لها ولا يرضى أن يخطرها بباله ويأنف لنفسه منها. So he's saying, for the sharaf of the nafs, the honor of the nafs, the soul, to make it honorable and to make it intelligent and to make it pure and full of light, then the mu'min, the believer, he should negate all these type of fruitless thoughts. All these extra thoughts that are not built upon reality, that do not help in your deen or your dunya, don't waste your time thinking about them. This will raise your nafs up to a higher level. They'll become pure. And he says the khatarat, the thought process, can be divided into 4 main foundations. The first one is تجلب بها منافع دنياهم, that which he can achieve benefits for his dunya. The second one, يستدفع بها مضار دنياهم, that he can keep away harmful stuff in his dunya. The third one, يستجلب بها مصالح آخرته, he brings about good things for his next life. And the fourth one, يستدفع بها مضار آخرته, he thinks about those things that will prevent harm in his next life. So he's saying these are the 4 foundations of thought, right? And subhanAllah, like if you look at all these self-help books and these, you know, like manuals to improve your thought, improve yourself, you know, that's written by scientists and people that studied, you know, 10, 20, 30 years to get their degrees and write these type of books. But subhanAllah, over 800 years ago, the Imam was talking about controlling your thought process and how to temper your thought process in the correct way to make it more beneficial to you. فليحصر العبد خطراته وأفكاره وهمومه في هذه الأقسام الأربع. So the servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should put his thoughts into these 4 categories, right? Those things that are beneficial for you in the dunya, those things that will keep away harm from you in the dunya, those things that are beneficial for you in the akhirah, and those things that will keep away harm for you in the akhirah, right? So what is beneficial for you in the dunya? That's a question. Wealth? Halal wealth though, right? Okay, yes. Halal wealth, earning to provide for yourself and for your family, halal means. So that's one of the benefits, right? To eat and to drink and to have a place to live and to give sadaqah and charity, right? To make hajj, to make umrah, these type of things you need wealth. So that's one of the benefits. What's one of the destructive things of the dunya or harms of the dunya that you try to stay away from, that you could think about how to prevent yourself from falling into it? Haram wealth, that's another one. Shahawat, lower desires, disease, sickness, things that you can take, like he's saying, trying to keep away from haram money, right? Because you don't want to provide yourself or your family with haram food or nourishment. And then for the akhirah, just a lot, mashallah, you can give me. No, the first one, the good prayers, yes, salat, that will bring you and give you benefit in your akhirah, right? Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered for us to do will bring you benefit, and then you can say the opposite for the last one. Anything that Allah has forbidden us from to do will bring you harm, so stay away from it. So he's saying these, your thoughts, if your thoughts are secluded to these 4 categories mainly, you will be of the successful, and you will have fruitful time and fruitful efforts in your life. And he says, وإذا تزاحمت عليه الخطرات لتزاحم متعلقاتها قدم الأهم فالأهم الذي يخشى فوته وآخر الذي ليس بأهم ولا يخاف فوته. So he's saying, so say your time is limited, So some of these things, they start crowding together. What should you do? He says that you should pick the most important first and put that first. So you have levels, right? So like for example, you have the salat fard at the time. It's there. So it's not the time to read a book about economics, because the fard takes precedence over the nafila or the sunnah or the extra deeds. So you do the fard first. So in those situations, you always put the most important first, prioritize. In all the self-help books, you'll see the same thing. It says put first things first. Like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Stephen Covey wrote like a very popular book back in the day that many people use. But he starts with the first principle is to put first things first. Always put the most important things first. If you focus on the less important things, it'll take away your time to do the more important things. And that's one of the tricks of the shaitan. He wants, if he can't get you to do the haram, he tries to get you to do something less beneficial for you. So always try to prioritize, and you put Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure first and foremost. And then, after that you can go to the lesser things, right? But always try to put Allah first. So he says it further can be classified so you can have a better understanding. Muhim la yufut wa ghayru muhim walakinnahu yufut. So the important thing that won't be missing, and the less important thing that can be missing, right? ففي كل منهما ما يدعو إلى تقديمه فها هنا يقع التردد والحيرة. فإن قدم المهم خشي فوات ما دونه، وإن قدم ما دونه فاته الاشتغال به عن المهم، وكذلك يعرض له أمران لا يمكن الجمع بينهما ولا يحصل أحدهما إلا بتفويت الآخر. فهذا موضوع استعمال العقل والفقه والمعرفة. So there's going to come times where there's going to be like 2 things of equal importance, or one thing, if you can only do one thing at a time, right? Like, so the most important thing, he's saying, you have time to do it, and the less important thing, you don't have time to do it. So what should you do? He's saying in these situations comes to the fiqh and the understanding of the person, right? But the general principle is, you always, if there's 2 masalih, 2 good things to do, you put the most important good thing first, right? And if there's 2 evils that must come about, you do the lesser of the 2 evils, right? And the famous story they have of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah during the time of the Mongols, right? So he was with his students, they were walking, and he saw the Mongols, they were drinking wine and getting drunk and doing foolishness. And the students asked Ibn Taymiyyah, like, aren't you going to forbid them from drinking wine? It's haram. And then Ibn Taymiyyah responded by saying, yes, drinking wine is haram, but spilling the blood of the Muslimin is more haram. If they were to be not drunk, they would be with their wits, and they would go and cause more destruction and kill more Muslims. So in this case, it's the lesser of 2 evils, right? So the Muslim, the faqih, the one who has understanding, always he able to understand, to pick the most important of 2 good things, the greater of the good, and to if he has to, take the lesser of the 2 evils. That's the principle of the religion. And also they say dar al-mafasid muqaddam ala jab al-masalih. Preventing evil takes precedence over bringing a good. So the Muslim Islam always tries to prevent greater evil and tries to prevent harm. La darara wa la dirar. There's no harm in the religion. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written easiness for us. So the wise one is able to distinguish this, and it comes with studying and consulting and learning from the ulama. Right? Alaykum as-salam wa rahmatullah. So والتحكيم في هذا الباب للقاعدة الكبرى التي عليها مدار الشرع والقدر وإليها مرجع الخلق والأمر، وهي إثار أكبر المصلحتين وعلاهما وإن فاتت المصلحة التي هي دونها، والدخول في أدنى المفسدتين لدفع ما هو أكبر منها. So summarizing all these principles, he says that the principle, the thing that all the scholars, the Islamic legislation is built upon, and even the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that you go and you put the greatest of the 2 benefits first, even if it means missing the lesser benefit. And you take the lesser of 2 evils right, even if that means not being able to prevent all evil. So that's the main qaida that we should come with from this lesson. Always, if there's a bunch of different good things you can do at the time, pick the greatest of the good thing you can do. If there's a couple of evils that have to come to you, you pick the least of the evils that you have to, allow to affect you. خطرات العقل. So the thought process of the mind. فخطرات العقل وفكره لا يجاوز ذلك وبذلك جاءت الشرائع ومصالح الدنيا والآخرة لا تقوم إلا على ذلك وعلى الفكر وأجللها وأنفعها ما كان لله والدار الآخرة فما كان لله فهو أنواع. So he's saying that the thought process of the mind, this is what the Sharia came to protect, right? It's one of the things we mentioned before, the 5 principles that the Sharia protect. We said the first thing, deen, right? The religion. And then right after that, some scholars say this part, al-aql, your mind, your thought process. And then the nafs, your life. Or some put the nafs first and then the aql, because you can't have aql if you don't have a nafs. And then your wealth and your honor and your progeny. So that's what the Sharia came to protect these 5 principles. So he's talking about the principle of the mind, and the most honorable and the greatest thing for your mind or for your thought process to be perfected is to first and foremost ponder about Allah in the day after. And he says, as for pondering upon Allah, that it's many types of categories. The first one, he says, الفكرة في آياته المنزلة وتعلقها وفهم مرادها ولذلك أنزل الله تعالى كتابه لا لمجرد تلاوته بل التلاوة وسيلة. So the first thing that a person can ponder upon and think about and use his mind in a proper way with is to ponder upon the ayat that Allah has revealed to us, meaning the Quran. And he says that it's not just for recitation purposes, right? The Quran was not sent just to recite. The Quran was sent to be acted upon and to be thought upon, right? So it's a way, the recitation is a sabil, it's a way to get to the understanding and comprehension and action. That's why Allah says, كِتَابٌ أَنزَلْنَاهُ إِلَيْكَ مُبَارَكٌ لِيَدَبَّرُوا آيَاتِهِ وَلِتَذَكَّرُوا أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. We reveal this book to you so that you may ponder upon it. Ponder upon its verses, right? And those of knowledge understand this. So the Quran is meant to be pondered upon and thought about. That's one of the greatest things you can keep your mind occupied with. قال بعض السلف أنزل القرآن ليعمل به فاتخذوا تلاوته عملا. The Quran was revealed, the Salaf used to say, as a means to act upon it. So take the recitation as a form of action, right? So tilawa also means to follow and to act upon. You know what Allah says in Shams, Surah Shams, وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. Tilaha doesn't mean to read in this sense, it means to follow. The moon is following the sun. So the Quran is meant to be followed and to acted upon and put into action. It's not just recitation. The meaning of the Quran is to act upon it. That's why it was revealed. ثاني الفكرة في آياته المشهودة والاعتبار بها واستدلال بها على أسمائه وصفاته وحكمته وإحسانه وبره ووجوده وقد حض الله سبحانه عباده على التفكر في آياته وتدبرها وتعلقها وذم الغافل عن ذلك. The second thing that you can use your mind in a proper fashion for is to ponder upon his ayat al-kawniyah, like basically the physical ayat he has sent down upon us, looking upon nature and looking upon things that will make you realize his great and beautiful names and attributes. It will increase your iman. Like Allah says, إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاخْتِلَافِ اللَّيْلِ وَالنَّهَارِ لَآيَاتٍ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Verily, in the creation and the heavens and the earth and the difference of the night and the day is a sign for those who have knowledge or understanding. So this is another thing to ponder upon. After the ayat of the book, the ayat of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It will increase your iman and it will increase your belief in His characteristics and His goodness to us. The more you think, even if, like I said last week, just pondering upon your own creation, Like the eye we just talked about earlier. Just looking about the eye. If you go up and research the eye alone, you can spend hours and hours studying about it. How beautiful it is. The mind, the heart, all these things, just in our own bodies. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. In your own selves, won't you see? Won't you see? Right? Let alone going out to the cone. Like now they just said they discovered, I don't know how many black holes in our own Milky Way, in the own galaxy. Like huge, many black holes. They don't even understand them completely. In our own galaxy, the Milky Way. And the Milky Way is a small galaxy compared to the other galaxies out there. Right? The stars, the oceans, they still haven't to this day discovered everything in the oceans. There's always discovering something new. Right? The rainforest, every day a new animal is being discovered. Even there's some islands that still have not been explored yet. In Indonesia, how many thousands of islands are out there? So just the signs that we see in front of us are something to increase our iman and belief in Allah and His beautiful names and attributes. And then the third thing to think about, use your mind, your thought process for in a beneficial way, is to think of Allah's bounties upon you personally, all the gifts He given you. Just like again to bring back the concept of our own eyes. Imagine if you don't have eyesight anymore. It said it's 80% of all processed information comes through the eyes. Right? Imagine if that 80% is gone. That's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The physical, your capability to walk, to talk, your family, your children, your loved ones, your wealth, your home, the clothes you wear, the car you have. The thing is just opening the faucet to get a cup of water. You're not even thinking about it. But some people have to walk miles and miles just to get some drops of water. So thinking about the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the third category. Inshallah we'll stop here, and then if there's any questions after adhan, we can have the questions, and the salat is at 9 o'clock. So the Imam is saying these four gateways are the main ways that evil come into the person. So he said the eyesight, the thought process, the mouth, the tongue, and the steps forward to the action, or doing the action, the steps towards the action. So we're saying basically to stay away from evil, you have to learn how to control these four things. And in the thought, we talked about the eyesight and how to use it properly and stay away from looking at that which is not permissible. And in the thought process, he mentions, what's proper to think about. First of all, we mentioned the four things. So that's what's beneficial for your dunya, and to get closer to it, and that which is harmful in your dunya, so you can try to stay away from it, and that which is beneficial for your next life, so you can go towards it, and that which is harmful to your next life, so you can stay away from it. And then he mentions, so those are the things that generally you should think about. And then he talks about he was mentioning the points, what you should occupy your thoughts with mostly. He said first and foremost is Allah and His signs, Allah in the next life. And he mentioned, thinking about Allah's ayat in the Quran, pondering upon ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the creation. And then we didn't get a chance to talk about it, also we said, thinking about His bounties upon you. The more you think of how many gifts Allah gives us, you feel shy or shameful that you've done sin with the gifts that He's given us. So the more we can ponder upon that, inshallah, Allah help us to make tawbah and be thankful to Him instead of using it for haram. And then he says, thinking about the ayub and nafs. So think about your own faults. The more you think about your faults, you humble yourself, your heart kind of gets softer. You want to get closer to Allah. You cry for the sins you've done. You remind yourself that you're weak and you can only be strong by Allah's help. You fall into sin, you can only be forgiven by Allah's mercy. So you turn to Allah more. It's a great way to remind yourself. Unfortunately, many people they spend their time thinking about other people's faults and they forget themselves. One scholar used to say that you see the speck of dust in the person's eye, but you forget that 2x4 sticking out of you. Look at yourself first and try to, the more you think about the shortcomings we have, that's one of the ways also that we can get better and try to get rid of the evilness we do or the sins we fall into and try to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the fifth point he mentioned is to think about the importance of time and how little time we have in our lives. And every second that passes is part of our life going away that you can never get back. So the more you ponder upon the importance of time, the more you can use it wisely, and you'll feel regret for all the time that we wasted. And we'll feel regret for any time we spent in sin, because all that time is, against us, or it's just lost. But only the good deeds is the time that counts, that'll bring us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? We're gonna be so grateful for in the next life. That's forever. So thinking about these things, inshallah, will help you to overcome the evil and to better the self. And inshallah, we'll start back next week from that those last 2 points, a little bit more detail. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا. Get ready for salah, inshallah.